a wonderful, tangible, almost edible source of information. You can take a bite out of it, chew it up, and swallow it, and guess what? It's not salty, it's not sweet, it's perfect. And the way that he put it was perfect. And I'm very thankful for this guy right here. And welcome to the stage, your first speaker, Mr. Mark Sargent.
Okay. This pickup? I'll do this just in case. Some months ago, a German television team contacted me because they had heard about my science challenge and had found a physicist at Georgetown University I could debate. They also wanted to make it as easy on the scientist as possible, so their idea was simple. They would record me on video, reading 5 quick science-based questions, and then send that recording over to Georgetown, and he would respond in kind. This is what I read on camera. 1. Long-distance photography. The mainstream science formula for the curvature of the Earth is 8 inches per mile squared. An easy comparison would be the falling rate of 32 feet per second, so 8 inches per mile per mile. 2 miles is 2 times 2 equals 4 times 8 inches, or 32. 3 miles is 3 times 3 equals 9 times 8, or 72, and so on. At 50 miles, the curvature is 50 times 50 times 8, coming in at over 1,600 feet of curvature. And yet, with HD cameras, we can pull boats back into frame that are well beyond visual range. Not only does the new technology clearly show that it's not a mirage, but the same objects can be viewed in infrared and can be targeted ship to ship by beam radar. Can science explain this? They had no answer. Number 2, vacuum versus gravity. The force of a vacuum is measured in units of torr, T-O-R-R. Even a low-level vacuum can overcome gravity here on the surface. In building molecule-free chambers for the manufacturing of electronics, a series of massive pumps are needed to create a 99% vacuum. That's -9 torr. And for the remaining 1%, horsepower isn't enough. It can only be achieved by a chemical leaching process. That being said, how is the -10 torr vacuum force of space not ripping off the atmosphere of this world? What is gravity? Oh, we're going to do both. Sorry about that. And remember that there are gases that already defy it, like helium, hydrogen, and fluorocarbons. Isn't it more logical to suggest that the atmosphere is being contained in an enclosed, pressurized system? They had no answer. Number 3, eclipse shadow. Mainstream science tells us that the moon is over 2,000 miles wide, and yet during the 2017 American eclipse, no offense, the moon's shadow was only 70 miles wide, a reduction of over 97%. This is what the equivalent of having a 6-foot man walking in front of a wall where his shadow is smaller than an action figure at only 2 inches. Where do we see this in our everyday lives? We've seen a shadow's actual size and some much larger. Where can we see small shadows? The flat earth community says that the moon is less than 50 miles wide, much closer and the same size as the sun. Isn't this explanation also possible? They had no answer. Number 4, moon temperature. Science has yet to address this relatively new discovery that the moon generates a cold light. We all know that in the daytime it is 90 degrees in the sunlight, 80 degrees in the shade, depending on conditions. I know I'm not going to do the Celsius conversion up here, sorry. However, at night, especially when the moon is high in the sky, we see the opposite. While it might be 50 degrees in the moonlight, it's warmer at 60 degrees in the moon's shade, sometimes showing temperature shifts of over 13 degrees Fahrenheit. In addition, under controlled experiment conditions, magnified moonlight is even colder still, again, the opposite of sunlight. We can generate this with technology today using a cold laser. The question is, why is the moon giving off a cold laser light? They had no answer. Last but not least, the Van Allen belts. A simple yes or no question. Are the Van Allen radiation belts deadly? If yes, then how did Apollo 11 through 17 make round trips through these belts with only aluminum and plastic as shielding? No one died. No one got radiation poisoning. Nobody even got cancer. I think there's still like 5 left. Radiation is only stopped by 2 metals, lead and gold. Both are very heavy and cannot be used in aerospace because of their weight. If the answer is no, the belts are not deadly, then explain the video currently on the NASA.gov website called Orion Trial by Fire, in which NASA clearly states that the belts are so dangerous they will not be testing manned capsules because they are unable to solve the radiation problem. Keep in mind, this is not an old video. It was created at the end of 2014. The scientist viewed my recording and folded like a card table. This piece was never aired. All that being said, my name is Mark Sargent, and I'm a flat earther. Flat Earth is my passion, it is my obsession, and it is now my life. I watched my very first Flat Earth video in the summer of 2014. Like many of you, I quietly laughed at it, and then I made a huge mistake. I casually thought I could debunk it. Then realized it wasn't so easy. I rolled up my sleeves and tried to shut it down for 9 months, and then I failed. Confused, irritated, and mildly depressed, I then published my very first Flat Earth video on February 10th, 2015, with my full name, address, and phone number, prepared for the ridicule that would inevitably follow. The video, called Flat Earth Clues, simply stated what I saw and prompted people to do their own research and ask questions. The phone rang almost immediately. A person on the other end of the phone said, "Tell me more." Then another call came, and another, and then the emails and the texts. I couldn't tell what the attraction was, but for whatever reason, it was resonating, so I kept generating content. Fast forward to this morning. I've done 80 videos dedicated to answering emails, 84 Flat Earth and Other Hot Potato shows with Patricia Steer, 159 weekly Strange World shows, over 1,200 Flat Earth videos in total. Since my phone number was very easy to find, I received calls for interviews, and I did everything I could to accommodate them, no matter who they were. I've talked to everyone from junior high newspapers to major networks, and I do my best to treat them all the same. I set my feet, keep my cool, and do whatever I can to plant the seed in their head. If they want to lay into me, I smile. If they give me an opening, I create momentum. I try to kill them with kindness, honey over vinegar. And if they give me enough time, my message will get into their head. Look into Flat Earth, do your own research, ask questions. And yes, seeds were planted. Every video that I made, every interview that I sat for was viewed by people who talked to other people, and eventually it circled back around. I honestly thought the first one was a fluke. I was in Atlanta, Georgia, sitting in the audience as Zen Garcia was engaged in a theological flat earth debate, because that's a thing now. We took a break for lunch, and I went over to the closest restaurant I could find, a sports bar in the same parking lot. The bartender, a woman in her late 20s, overheard us talking in the corner. She came over and asked me directly if we were into flat earth. I said yes, and she said, "High five." The next day I flew out from Atlanta. My carry-on was going through a second screening, and I was wearing a "I am Mark Sargent" t-shirt. A young Homeland Security man pointed at my bag and then me. He then kept staring at my shirt and my eyes. Back and forth he did this until finally he asked quietly, "Yo, you Mark Sargent for reals?" I said yes. He winked at me, handed me my bag without opening it, and said, "That's my name too." He knew the Fight Club reference. We may not all be Mark Sargent, but we are all flat earth. I was at a recent Salton Sea test in Southern California, and after an exhausting morning with skeptics, National Geographic, and a whole bunch of flat earthers, we met up at an organic cafe in Palm Springs. The cashier, who eventually figured out what we were doing at our tables, then showed us the anything but secret hand sign. You see, she was one of us. Despite what you may hear, we do have people everywhere. That same trip, I was out to dinner with a few people from the meetup. Patricia Steer received an invitation for drinks at the weekend home of a Hollywood icon. We went, along with Rob Skiba, and found out that the Flat Earth grapevine reached much further than publicly reported. When I got back to Whidbey Island, that's in Washington, by the way, if you guys didn't know, I walked past a construction crew. A young man was staring at me from a distance and then approached. He asked me if I was that guy from Flat Earth. Keep in mind, this is a rural island in the corner of the United States. That very evening, and I cannot make this up, my cousin called me from Manhattan. She was there in a wine bar with executives from one of the biggest Wall Street hedge funds in the world. One of them brought up Flat Earth. She mentioned my name, and not only did they know the clues, they insisted on sending me a picture of them next to a phone with an AE map on it. Only one other person in this room has seen that picture. My point, and I'm repeating myself for the documentary team who did not believe me, is that we have people everywhere. At first, I thought Flat Earth was like the Spice Girls, who, even though they sold 80 million albums, almost no one was willing to admit that they owned it. The truth about Flat Earth is that we're much bigger than the Spice Girls. Currently, the majority of our membership is in the closet. For every one of you here, there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, with the same information and the same awakening. Think that's an exaggeration for the media that's here? A recent article inside Russia said that at least 3%, and these are the ones that admitted it, of Russians believe in the Flat Earth. If that lowball number is true, that's over 4 million people, 4 million Flat Earthers just in Russia. They stand quietly and watch from the outside, waiting for the moment when mainstream makes it something to talk about without ridicule. For the community members who are on the front lines, and there's a bunch of them here, taking the hits day after day, I salute all of you. Just look at the amazing work these people have done in just 3 years. D. Marble got on an airplane with a spirit level, and he made national news. His channel now grows every day. Nathan Thompson has the largest Flat Earth Facebook group in the country. Patricia Steer has put herself out there on camera doing over 250 Flat Earth and other hot potato shows. Globebusters averages over 1,000 live viewers in a hangout, something that many globalist YouTube channels would be envious of. Celebrate Truth, who I have heard is Canadian, is at 98,000 subscribers. Oh, and in his spare time, he organizes first-of-its-kind conventions like this. Jaronism has grown to over 113,000 subs. Rob Skiba is 145,000. Controversy 7, another Canadian, is at 151,000. ODD Reality is at 185,000. And there are many, many more. Too many, in fact, to mention here. Keep in mind that these aren't video game or makeup or food channels. Like Sparta, this is Flat Earth. All of these channels and this massive wall of content has affected almost everyone else in the social media. In the last year, the ripples from our members have spilled over into the YouTube titans. And they have responded. Some positive, some negative. But the exposure is priceless and the numbers staggering. Star Talk, one video, 2.3 million views. This morning in UK, one video, 2.8 million. Jimmy Kimmel, 3.7 million. Rich Ferguson, 4.4 million. Joe Rogan, 5 million. PewDiePie, the largest YouTube channel in the world, did not one but 2 Flat Earth videos at 6 million hits each. Space Videos, which is a dedicated 24/7 science live stream, now has to put Debunk Flat Earth in their title. And it does nothing but create more awareness for Flat Earth. Thank you for that. Niga Higa generated 15 million hits in one Flat Earth video in April of last year. And Shane Dawson generated 15 million Flat Earth hits, and he did it June of this year. I remember in the fall of 2015 and how cool it was that Forbes magazine even mentioned the words Flat Earth in an article. Now if I don't see a news story every other day, I feel let down. That's how media spoiled we've become. In fact, it was one of these recent articles by U.gov, a British media research company, that got the attention of National Geographic. You see, they had polled over 8,200 Americans and asked them about the shape of the Earth. And the number that stood out, the 18 to 24-year-olds. Over a third of them were skeptical of the official story that we lived in a spinning rock flying through empty, meaningless space. That study was the first wake-up call for science, who up until now has just dismissed the people involved because our numbers didn't present a threat. Now, at least some of them know differently. And for the rest of the scientific community, I come bearing a message. I like science. I always have. I flew here on the back of science, and I am speaking to you now on the fruits of its labor. Science, however, was never intended to be a religion, and that's what you've turned it into. You've turned it into scientism. You've taken the faith that people have in your lab coats and you turned it against them, pushing concepts and products onto the population which can be harmful or just simply untrue. You've taken what should have been simple observations and twisted them to suit your needs and make us feel small. We're not small, and we're not an accident. In fact, we are the new scientists, and we're heading straight for you. You don't want to defend yourself? Fine. Any ground you're not currently standing on? It's ours. We'll take the cities, we'll take the suburbs, we'll take the countryside. We've already been winning this war by attrition because you didn't think we were worth it. You want to call us a social media virus? Well, at least you got one thing right. We are infectious. We're currently the most interesting concept in the world. We're easy to understand, and we open minds. Oh, and one more thing. As you sit there in your offices, wringing your hands because you don't want to risk that vaulted education of yours, we've been running around your flanks at speed for the last 3 years. In closing, I'd like to circle back around. My name is Mark Sargent, and I'm a flat earther. Every day I try to set an example for the community. I make content, I do interviews, I fly to meetups, I place stickers, I leave bookmarks. My car has a license plate that says it's flat. Even my gaming guild is named Flat Earth. When I'm awake, I'm trying to figure out new ways to plant the seed, and I absolutely will not stop until Flat Earth has changed this world for the better, because that's what we all deserve, a better world. Long live Flat Earth. Thank you.
All right. Mark Sargent. Yes. You and your crazy flat earth clues, pal. Hey, what we're going to do real quick, we're already going over. Imagine that happening at a conference. Real quick, to get you guys all involved, first and foremost, would you guys rather have a 15-minute break now or a 10-minute break now? Because we're going to end up shaving some time off either on the lunch break or we can do it now, but we're going to try and keep everything on track because last year we kind of got a little behind. But we're not going to do that this time. We're going to figure it out. So would you guys speak up? Would you rather have a 10-minute coffee break or 15? 10 minutes? All right, do me a favor. Stand up real quick. And if you haven't met everybody, just kind of say hey to everybody. This is a great time to be here, and we just want to say thanks. So get up, stretch your legs, introduce yourself. And Mark's Q&A will be back right after this. Check. All right. If anybody by the door, if you guys could holler out real quick and tell those guys we're going to start rallying in. Welcome to the first Flat Earth Rodeo. Lasso them in. Bring them in. There's still people getting coffee back there. We're not going to rush them. Take a drink of the coffee and then you'll be quicker getting back to your table. Are you guys ready? There's still people out there. All right, we're going to give you guys 60 seconds. By the way, I just want to say again, thank you for being here. And what a beautiful city Edmonton is. And what a ridiculous sized mall. Wow. Yesterday we went shopping and somebody said, go down to the food court. Is there more than one food court here? Okay. That's probably why we got lost coming out of the first one. But all I can say is you guys have a wonderful mall, wonderful facility. And I think it's kind of funny that we're all at Fantasyland. And then, of course, the theme park is called Galaxyland. And the media made fun of us. Okay. I just think it's very fitting. I also want to say a special thanks to a guy here that made the trip from Indiana as well, or Kentucky. Lives right on the border of Indiana and Kentucky. If you guys don't mind, give a round of applause for Jake Grant. He's running around with a camera from Now You See TV. So, Jake, wherever you are, I saw you floating around here a little bit ago. I want to say thanks to you, brother, for making this trip and being a part of this and helping out. And he's helping out with the Roll and Ready project as well. Guys, if you guys can be real quiet back there, we're going to bring Mark back up, and you guys can just make your ways back. We want to try and stay on time. So thank you. Once again, everybody, thank you for being here. We hope that you have a very enjoyable time at this conference. Thanks again to Robbie Davidson and his wonderful family for being so gracious to many of us and for having us be a part of this. This is not something that any of us had planned as far as getting to know each other. But I can tell you, I do not believe in accidents. I do not believe in just random acts of whatever. I do believe this is all has a purpose. And once again, the man that brought me into this, after Rob ruining my life, let's go to the Q&A with Mr. Mark Sargent. You need this? What? You need this? You don't need that.
Yeah, but this isn't working. Oh. Can everyone hear me? No.
I'm going to be like the guy when the professional tennis players aren't playing. They have the kid that's holding the umbrella.
No. Well, no. I just want to make sure. Is this picking up? This right here? Is this okay? All right, let's do it. All right. We did this down. Get out of here. We did this down in Raleigh when we did the conference down in the United States last year, and it worked out really, really well. Just want to preface it with that Flat Earth and this conference isn't about me. It isn't about the speakers. It is about you. You guys make up the mass of the membership, you and the millions of others that couldn't make it here for whatever reason. And so, I could talk to you all day about all sorts of stuff, but I really want to talk to you. And so this is a Q&A session. So what we've got going here is we have a microphone right over there next to the lovely Patricia Steer, who I could barely see because of the lights. And we also have a microphone back right in front of, I think, those other lights over there. And just what I encourage anyone to do is if you have a question, because I will not be able to talk to everyone here that wants to talk to me. I would love to, whatever you've got. I don't care if it's pro, against. I don't care if it's media asking an obvious question. I don't care if you're asking me my favorite flavor of ice cream. I just love it's chocolate marshmallow ripple, by the way. That my address is on all my videos. So please, by all means. And while we're waiting for people to go to whatever microphones, I'm sorry, there's a little incentive. Anyone that asks a question will automatically get a customized Flat Earth Illuminati card right here. Signed by me. This particular series is called The Sleeper. I kind of took off, I love movie references, anyone that follows my stuff. This is from Dune, the 1984 movie, The Sleeper Has Awakened. All of you have awakened. That's why you're here. And when you leave here, you're going to be talking to other people, and eventually they will be awakened as well. And so, all you have to do is, when you ask a question, you'll get handed a card like this, and I signed it on the back. I had one guy down at Raleigh. He came. I'll tell this story real quick. Because I signed him in advance. And what happened was he came up to me afterwards and he goes, "Hey, can you autograph this?" And I thought I'd play it up. So I said, "Okay, hold the card like this, just like this, in front of you." He goes, okay. And I go, "Wah!" And he looks, and he was just, the autograph was there. So but I let him in on it. So do we have a question over there? Yes, we do. And by the way, you don't have to give us your full name or anything, but name and where you're from.
Yeah, sure. All right. I'm Ryan from Sherwood Park.
Cool.
I'm curious what your take is on Mad Mike Hughes. Yeah.
Okay.
He's a friend of mine. And yeah.
Okay.
We've all got our opinions. I'm just curious what yours is. It's pretty fascinating.
Okay, no, it's no problem. And by the way, you can ask me about any person that's in the community. I won't give you all the deep dish, even though I've got it, all of it. But I have an opinion on just about everybody. So Mad Mike Hughes, okay, down in the States, if you guys didn't know, he's known as the Rocket Man, the Rocket Stunt Man. Actually, he's a lesser version of Roland Reddy. And what he did was he came to us, the Flat Earth community, and he wanted to do this rocket, kind of like an Evel Knievel. If you're old enough to remember the Evel Knievel jump over the gorge in, I think it was 1976 or something like that. And he asked us to help finish the rocket in terms of funding, and we did. And for that, we got this giant flat Earth thing stenciled on the side. And it worked out really, really well because we got a huge amount of exposure. We had 3 waves of media. That part was a little dicey because he didn't launch twice, sort of a cliffhanger thing. So he goes to launch, nope, technical problems. And he leaves, comes back several weeks later. Gonna launch, nope, technical problems. Finally comes back the 3rd time and launches, but the media down in the United States just jumped all over it. They really, really loved it. So on one hand, yes, the exposure was fantastic. Is there a little friction between him and some of the members of the community? Yes, because he was kind of late to the game, and it was beneficial for both of us. But in the end, it helped. I mean, the headlines, you can look them up even now. Normally, we'd pop this up on the screen, but that's okay. All you have to do is go to your phones and type in Mad Mike Hughes or Mad Mike Rocket Man, and his stories will be in there until the internet crashes and burns. So, cool.
All right.
Get your card. Don't
forget. Yeah, thanks a lot. I got the card.
All right. Right, I'm done. And by the way, I cannot see that if there's anyone over next to that microphone. Yes, I do. Okay, good. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Peter from Lethbridge, Alberta.
Right on.
Could you tell me something about the arguments put forth for the atmosphere supposedly moving with the Earth?
The atmosphere moving with the Earth. What I try to tell people there, and it was kind of worked into one of the science questions, was, and I wasn't into this for a while, which was the vacuum power. I've talked to engineers and pilots and air traffic controllers and you name all the branches of the military down in the United States and some outside the United States. But when I got into guys that specialized into, 2 guys in particular, one guy was an industrial engineer specializing in valves and seals, and the other guy was a vacuum expert. And this kind of cut to the chase of your question, which is, what basically they were saying is that the vacuum, if you believe in space, the power of a vacuum is way, way, way too strong to keep wispy gases. Gravity, if you believe in gravity, cannot even compete with what's happening outside of this world, again, if you believe in mainstream science. So when anyone talks about, is the atmosphere going with the Earth or against the Earth, is gravity holding it down, I go straight to the vacuum of space, and I say, forget about that. I go, there's no reason the atmosphere should be here at all. The only way it works is if it's some sort of pressurized enclosed system, like a shallow sports stadium. Does that help?
Yes, he sat down, but yes.
Okay, cool. All right. Oh, you already sat down? Oh, okay. All right, that's excellent. We'll go over to, actually, we'll do
Patricia.
Patricia again. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Laurie from Edmonton.
Closer to the microphone.
I'm from Edmonton. My name's Laurie.
Hey.
And just one question about, we see the North Star at night, and we see time-lapse photography of stars moving about it.
Right.
So that all makes sense for us.
Yeah.
But it's also doing it at the alleged South Pole,
right,
where there's about 6 stars.
Right.
How do we perceive that one?
Now, and of course, I can't speak for all the people that are going to be, as you know, the Flat Earth community is divided on a number of issues. We can all agree it's absolutely not a globe, and everyone's got their own thing. But with me, when it comes to that, I treat it no different than a planetarium. I'm a little bit older. I don't know if you guys have planetariums up here where, it's basically just a sports stadium with all the seats removed while all the seats are laying on their backs, and you're projecting the stars on the screen. But what happens is, if that particular planetarium was large enough, you'd have to have multiple projection systems. And the argument I try to throw there, and this will kind of go into what you're saying, is that let's say you're on one side of the planetarium and your friend is on the other side, right? And you're talking to each other on cell phones, and you're miles and miles and miles apart. You say, hey, I can see the belt of Orion. Your friend says, I can see the belt of Orion too. And you say, well, the blue star in that the middle star is blue. And he says, no, the middle star is red. who's right? Well, technically you're both right because you're probably looking at what you think is identical, but no, they're just separate belts of Orion. They're based on region. That's how you would do it. That's how I would do it anyway. Does that help?
Makes sense. Thank you.
Cool. You over there. We got
David from Edmonton. I got a question.
Yeah.
Is there any like rich people or like famous people that believe in flat Earth? And the other part is like, is there anybody like trying to like break out to the very edge of flat Earth, like some sort of expedition?
Yes, that's an excellent question. I can't go into too much detail on this because as you know, as you get more money and prestige and power, you also have more to lose. And so, the public ones we know about. The first one that came out really was a musical artist named B.O.B. He was a rapper in the United States. And then, who's the Tila Tequila did her thing. And then Kyrie Irving was really, really big. But remember, Kyrie Irving had almost nothing to lose. He had just won his world championship. He was playing with LeBron James, one of the most recognizable faces in sports. And he was only 24. So he was like, what do I care? Yeah, Earth is flat. I have talked to other people. Yes, to answer your question, yes, there are a whole bunch of famous people they're into this, but they have a lot to lose. They're not going to come out until they know the media won't crucify them. The story, and I'll elaborate just a little bit on this, was when I was, Rob and Patricia and I, we were at this particular Hollywood person's place, and he asked us, he goes, well, don't you want to know how I found out about it? It's like, well, because we're talking about different circles. And we said, yes. And he said, I heard about it at the Oscars this year. He was at an Oscar party, and that's what they were talking about when they were drinking champagne. You'd think they'd be talking about awards and stuff. No. They were talking about stuff, and the person that introduced him to it is an A-lister as well. And he said the same, I'll tell you that. He said that there are a lot of people in high-ranking positions. And that thing I mentioned, I know I probably glossed over it pretty quickly, one of the Wall Street hedge fund guys, the CEO of a massive hedge fund in the United States. I can't even show that picture to anybody because it would actually affect the stock price of what he's tied to. Because, right now. Now, if he comes out later, he'll be in the clear, but he can't talk about it now. So there's a lot of flat earthers that know, certain people, but I'll leave it with one more thing, because we got time. I went to shoot some footage down in Los Angeles with part of Shane Dawson's team. He's a big internet guy. And we had an actor show up at the set who's on a major television show in CBS. And, we talked and, made introductions, but he made himself very, very clear because, he was only in his second season. By the time we got to the end, he shook my hand. He goes, I was never here. It's like, okay. So, yes, lots of people. Do you have somebody over there?
Yes, my name is Phil McDavid,
Yeah.
direct relation to the captain of the Oilers here in Edmonton.
Cool.
My brother Elliot had a question for me on top of the mountain the other day in Hudson Hope, BC. It was a clear, starry night, and we were standing there having a beer, and he says, tell me something, Mr. Flat Earther. He says, why isn't it we can't see the fucking moon tonight? And I didn't have an answer for him. I said, and it was 2 nights straight we could not see the moon anywhere.
That's a tough one for me to answer because I get those emails and phone calls all the time. People will say the moon doesn't look right. The phase is wrong, or it's not there, or how can this be, or it's a daylight scenario. What I try to tell them is, for whatever reason, I think whatever the projection system here is, either they're leaving us breadcrumbs deliberately, or it's out of sync sometimes, depending on region. I just don't know more than that. But yeah, I believe it's real sometimes. Oh yeah, anytime anybody sends me that, I never say, oh, this guy's full of it. I immediately say, yeah, could be.
Good enough, Mark.
Right. Yes, you.
Hi, I'm Chris Gardillo. I'm a medical doctor. I believe the Earth is flat.
Right
just wanted to ask about the moon.
Yeah.
Sometimes various astronomical societies have said that they've seen the star behind the unlit surface of the moon, so you can see stars passing behind it. And I just wonder if you can kind of speak to the quality or the nature of the moon based on that kind of observation.
The moon is no doubt the most unusual thing in the sky. And I don't mean that, for astronomers out there, it's pretty unusual. No, I mean it's really freaky. Is it 2D or is it 3D? And a few things we know for sure. One, of course, the coincidences, the fact that it can fit in front of the sun perfectly because it's 400 times less in diameter and 400 times further or closer than the sun, which is really weird. The second part is, of course, that the moon is completely locked in one visual position. So you always see the same side of the moon, and that isn't hyperbole. You literally see the exact same side of the moon. It doesn't even change a quarter of a degree in 10 years. It's always that same one. And, of course, the third one, which I love so much, is the moon temperature, which is, guys, you can test this yourself. You can go out and buy a point-and-click infrared thermometer at, I don't know, whatever place that sells it here. And for like $15, $17, I'm not going to do the conversion. And then, shoot moonlight and shoot moon shade and show it yourself. What you're talking about, though, as far as are the stars shining through it? I don't know. I mean, some people have shown me pictures that, yeah, it kind of looks like that. I'm almost beginning to believe it's more two-dimensional than it is three-dimensional. It's still emitting some sort of its own light. I know that. I know it's self-illuminated, at the very least.
Thank you.
Yes, you.
Hi, I'm Nick from Edmonton. I'm just wondering, what is your perspective on, like, it's 1 p.m. in the day and I can see the moon and the sun in the sky. Shouldn't it be over, like, another part of the world?
Yeah. It's the problem, I love the question, and I get this question probably every week. The problem with using it as a slam dunk, convincing 100%, put it in a certificate you can frame, that the Earth is flat, is that most people aren't three-dimensional thinkers. So, yeah, you can point at the moon. Don't get me wrong. Whatever you want to throw at your friends to use, and say, oh yeah, by the way, the Earth is flat because of this. That's fine if they believe it. But most people don't have the grasp on where the sun and the moon should be. Same thing, I have to bring this up real quick, which is the Foucault pendulum experiment, which every once in a while we'll bring it up. Foucault should give us a lot more problems in the community. The reason it doesn't is because even mainstream science has a hard time explaining how it should work. And so when a scientist goes on about how the Foucault thing should work, they can't even explain it in less than 5 minutes because it screws with people's heads. So, right? Yes, you.
Hello, my name is Connie. I'm from Red Deer. I'm just learning about these things. If I could put 2 quick questions out there.
Sure.
Number 1, if the Earth is flat, what about all the other planets and stars and moons? Are they also flat? And number 2, my understanding of the flat Earth map, as opposed to the globe, is that it opens at the bottom and the southern perimeter is where you really see the bigger distances occurring, if I'm right. And have we ever tried to fly a plane, say, from the southern tip of South America to Australia to prove that it would be so much farther on a flat Earth map than on a globe where those 2 points would be very close together?
Okay. First question first. Let's get the obvious one out of the way, which is, and we've all heard it, and you're going to hear it more, which is, if all the planets look like spheres, doesn't that mean we're a sphere? The easy version on that is the pool table explanation, and that is because the pool tables are on the ball, they're all spheres, but the pool table isn't a sphere. Even though that's where everything's happening. I don't like that one as much. The one I really like is throwing it back at him and saying, who told you all those things up in the sky were spheres? NASA? The same guys that told you the Americans went to the moon? Those guys? Because no offense, because I know there's some Americans in here, don't believe anything the United States government tells you ever about anything, especially NASA. No, never do it. I mean, there are lights in the skies. That's it. If you want visual examples of that, just go to, look up any amateur astronomer photograph of one of those planets you're talking about, Jupiter, Mars, Neptune, Venus, whatever, and then compare it to what NASA shows you. It's amazing what they can show you. The rings of Saturn look incredibly crisp. And yet there's a hexagon on top of it, and Jupiter looks amazing, even though that red dot on it. They've released duplicate pictures of Jupiter's spot, even though they're 5 years apart. Literally duplicate pictures. The second question, which is the distances. We know and that's actually a good question, and I don't have the AE map in front of me, but you guys all know what it looks like. We know there are problems with the AE map when it comes to perspective. When I made the clues, my initial thing was to point out the routes, not necessarily the distances, which was on a flat map, the routes make way, way more sense, which is how I got into it. Because I was watching a German video back in 2014 where the guy says, and he wasn't even, he was into flat Earth, but he wasn't hardcore. And he said, the routes don't make any sense on a globe. And I, again, challenge you guys to put this, to the test. Find me flights in the southern hemisphere that don't have connections, and all those connections are just going all over the place. To your point, though, are there problems with the distances? Yeah, of course there are. But and people say, well, okay, why do you keep using the AE map? I keep using it because it's a fantastic introduction into flat Earth. That's why if flat Earth is a university, what's the catchphrase? You'll lose sleep, you'll lose friends, but you'll gain understanding. Enroll today. That's pretty much what it is. But flat Earth is a university where you come in once you get through the front door, it's wide open behind you. So advanced maps, that's what everybody's been working on for the last 18 months, 2 years. If you're in flat Earth more than 6 months, you're probably looking at the AE map going, okay, I think it should be tweaked here and there. But it's not easy to do. Remember, it's three-dimensional thinking, and you've got to manipulate the continents around. And the last guy that tried to do it with I think he drove himself mad doing it, was Tiger Dan, if you know that story. I won't go into it right now, but he was a British guy who looked at it and said, I'm gonna redo the map based on distances between cities and use a 3D CAD program to stretch the continents in a certain way. And after 2 weeks, something happened to him, and we never heard from him again. That was 2 years ago. So, there you go. Do you have any? Yes.
Hi, Mark. My name's Stephen from Edmonton. I guess it's a question that I have.
Yeah.
Why would the science community try and keep the veil over everybody? Why not just come clean? Is this something going back to the 60s and trying to beat the Russians to the moon, and it's all to do with who got there first, and
right.
Why can't they just come clean and say, look, this is the way it is?
Because by the time they figured it out, I can only speak for the States. I don't know what was up in Canada in 1960, but the industrialized world was already, the cement was already cast. And so men in power, it's one of the things I learned early on, which was they do not take chances. So 3 things would happen. Let's say, for example, some scientist revealed it tomorrow on CNN or whatever, and it was broadcast around that the Earth was not that shape. There's potential for some real shockwaves, some real upheaval. So first thing would happen, it's 3, I'll do them real quick. The first one is academic. Literally every university in every country, astrophysics and astronomy would have to be shut down overnight. Those would not reopen. And the remaining sciences, geology, hydrology, biology, archaeology, take your pick. Those would have to be retooled from the ground up. Second thing would happen would be economic. You know that economics, the world markets change really, really, really quickly based on almost nothing. And in this case, the economic world markets would have to be suspended for a couple of months, because how does it react? How would the world react to this? Industries would rise and fall based on this. Communities, cities, churches, which leads me to the third thing. The third thing, of course, is the biggest of all, which is spirituality. How does the general public react when all of a sudden you have all these, the major 5 religions, right? Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. They're all told the same thing, that we're created. We're part of a created world, and that intelligent design appears to be real. And science, which has been beating us over the head with textbooks for the last 500 years, you've got a few other things you got to explain, like, evolution, the Big Bang Theory, and stuff like that. What happens? You combine those 3 things, it's the shortest, sinister meeting of all time, which is, what could possibly go wrong? And then they rattle off those things right there. Oh, no, they'd be, no, we're going to keep this going for as long as they can. Unfortunately, technology caught up with them, which was the internet, digital photography. Those are the 2 big ones. In social media, you combine those, and again, you can't hide something like this forever, which is why this is happening, why this conference is happening, why other conferences, why there's been, how many meetups? 200 and something meetups already. I've phoned in stuff to New Zealand, the Indonesian. It's all over the place. And the reason is because they can't hide it forever. It's kind of like hiding cigarettes from your roommate. You can move it around here and there, but you're not going to be able to hide it forever. Sooner or later, you're going to stumble across it. So, there.
Mark, we have a special guest here. Roland Reddy has showed up just for you.
Reddy's
And he
here.
wants to ask you a question. Roland?
All right. I'm a little nervous.
Mark Sargent, Roland Reddy, redneck rocket scientist, most time from Indiana, sometimes other places. Quick question for you. I've been challenged on a triple dog dare to come here and ask you a few questions, but I think I'm outnumbered at this point in time. There are people from the media out there that I probably need to talk to them as well, but I just wanted to ask if you had about 10 minutes after this was done, if you could talk to me one-on-one.
I will, under the condition that you are kind and open-minded.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll take that as a maybe.
One other question.
What do you got?
If I'm going to take a rocket up into space to blow myself up in a stunt with a car attached to it,
right.
What's the most flammable substance in space?
The most flammable, that's a trick question because there are no flammable substances in space.
That's exactly what Neil deGrasse Tyson said.
Yeah, you can't.
So you got to take a tank of oxygen with you? He said that.
Yeah, you'd have to combust it in its own chamber.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing. I started thinking about this, and Neil said you can't have a small explosion in space, right?
No.
Then how can you have a Big Bang?
That's good. Well done.
Why are y'all clapping? I'm actually asking.
Okay.
Okay, I'll see you after this.
Okay, I'll see you after this.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Over there.
Hi, my name is Eddie. I'm from Boise, Idaho, and I also live here in the beautiful city of Edmonton.
Cool.
Pleasure to be here and see everyone. I got to chat with this pretty woman here. That's I have a question, and also now a little bit of comment too.
Close to the mic.
Okay. Considering the moon, like Crow 777, how it seems as though like it could be a projection and everything.
Yeah.
It seems to me as though the moon, being for the temperature observations that they're opposite to the sun, it almost seems like it's like a collector, or almost seems like equatorially, if the sun is orbiting the way it is, if it wasn't for something that could absorb the heat, then it's almost like a capacitor or a collector. But anyway, that was my comment based on earlier. But my question to you is, what's your take on the documentary that I've seen a few months ago concerning all the different laser tests, microwave, tests all around,
Was that the one that was done in South America?
Yes, the convex Earth.
Yeah.
It seems like that documentary was, I enjoyed it, and then I, with the exception of a few little details there that didn't really match up to what I was used to believing and everything. It seemed like it was a very...
the first...
Apparently after I came back and listened to you guys on the channel speaking about it, I knew something was awry. I wasn't exactly sure the particular details concerning that, but it seemed like, for the most part, it seemed like pretty sound science.
The first hour, he's talking about a documentary is it officially called The Convex Earth?
That's what Patricia was saying.
It was done in South America, and it was done by a group that we hadn't really heard about. They just came out and released this thing. The first hour I really enjoyed because they kind of made it as kind of like a poor man's, kind of like an Ancient Aliens format, which was, the editing was good, the early experiments were good. By the time they got to the second hour with that teaser, with the high altitude thing that was supposedly looking out over, mythical continents, it got a little iffy. And then, of course, that was the whole alien thing that kind of threw them. If they really wanted to make this thing more serious, they probably should have removed any of aliens that speak Portuguese in a high-pitched voice that are hiding in the bushes. That wasn't as good. But I loved the first hour. I really, really did. Because, any exposure, because I love that they were going down. By the way, also that they said they were in the flat earth for 7 years. No, I don't think so. Not really. I think they were just kind of jumping on the bandwagon. But I enjoyed it. And it gave the community something to chew on for a while. And then after a while, we said, it doesn't taste very good. So we just kind of let them do their own thing.
Do you believe those experiments to be valid or fictitious?
Some of the experiments, sure. I love the long-distance photography stuff.
Yeah.
But by the time they had done their thing, remember, we already had FE Core doing their world record laser test over in Hungary. And they did a bang-up job. I love the technique, and if the first hour of that video, which I think I mirrored for a little while anyway, if the first hour of that video inspired other people to look into flat Earth, great. Which is, by the way, if you see me ever endorsing, people that, major networks that make a flat Earth video, if it generates millions and millions of hits and it's still kind of negative against flat Earth, there's still going to be people that sign on because of it. It might be a smaller percentage, but it works. Anyway, does that help?
Yep. Thanks, Mark.
Okay, cool. We still got.
Hey, good day. Rob Scott from over in Windsor, Ontario.
Yeah.
So a couple questions. Really quick, you said something about projections.
Yes.
So do you think that this is a projection? That was just one part that I missed.
Do I think, are we talking simulated reality, or are we just talking
Was that something that you are signed up for? Like that's.
I'm signed up for the projection just because it's what we do. Life imitates life, and art imitates life. It's what we do in planetariums. And planetariums have been around, since the late 60s, early 70s. And people don't know how flexible those things are with the limited technology. Back in the States, planetariums would shut down the star projections on weekends and light everything up with lasers and do laser Floyd and laser Led Zeppelin, and people get really high and lay on their backs. But the point was you could put anything up on the sky, up on the ceiling that you wanted.
With the whole blue beam thing.
So
with my original question that I actually wanted to get to, not to make everyone paranoid or anything like that, but with you kind of ruffling the beast's feathers and the system that is been put in place in that sort of way, what sort of lashbacks have you received? And not to
almost, and I'm not speaking just for me, the community as a whole has been treated kind of like with kid gloves. And I've mentioned this on several different things where we seem to be getting token resistance. And that is a little weird that people, I do it. Yeah, of course I got that one death threat from that guy over in England. It said he was going to stab me with a 24-centimeter knife, and I had to do the conversion, and it kind of took all the thrill out of it. It's like, what is it? It's like 9, I think it's 9 inches. And then I made the mistake. I don't want to get into it. That was the only one that was really bad. By the way, he wasn't on crack. He actually wrote back to clarify that he was actually on a 4-day meth bender. So it's like, okay, that
this
makes
is exactly the story I was asking for. Yeah, thanks.
But most of the community has, like, for example, a real quick example would be Neil deGrasse Tyson when he went on Comedy Central and he was going against rapper B.O.B. He could have brought his A game and brought graphics and animations and all sorts of simple things, and he didn't. He didn't bring any of that stuff. He just talked for 7 minutes and brought up math. And he lost despite what the audience was doing, they weren't following along. We haven't really seen any organized. Get back to this real quick. The only organized resistance we've had from the community of science came from National Geographic, and that should be released in the next, August, at the end of next month. And that was because of another scientific research group over in England, the U.gov survey, which you guys can look up. It was a British group that surveyed a bunch of Americans. National Geographic watched that, and when they finally came down to talk to us, they were asking the questions that I was expecting a year ago, at least, where they were saying, isn't flat Earth a threat to science? What happens to medicine? What happens to space technology? What happens to civilization as we know it? It's like, really? These are the questions you're throwing at me. Like it was an inevitable thing. But, sorry, short answer, we've received almost no organized defense. That help, kind of? Okay. Yes.
Hey, I'm Luke here from Sherwood Park.
Yeah.
Over the last couple months, if you watch any kind of small tidbits of news on your Facebook feed or YouTube, you'll notice that they're starting to push what the Pentagon is releasing and the government in the United States is releasing on aliens actually being true.
Right.
Why do you think in the recent past, like last 6-7 months, there's been such a strong push by the government and the media to start releasing hidden Pentagon papers and stuff like that to prove aliens?
And that's a good question. I'm glad you brought that up. The question is why is the government bringing up other things? And I've stated since the beginning that flat Earth is not the end of this story. We seem to be the framework for a canvas that hasn't been laid out yet. And that's part of what I do every day. I just keep thinking of, okay, what are you doing? I keep watching a ton of media. But yes, what could, because people say, okay, well, what's bigger than flat Earth? Not much. Two things could be bigger than flat Earth. One would be the actual full-blown admission of an advanced civilization bigger than ourselves, which also could lead into intelligent design. And the other thing would be why we are here. And yeah. So every story you see that's coming out, and there have been more and more every month, it's mostly because of us. Because flat Earth, remember, it's the ultimate open-minded test. If you can get your head around flat Earth, you shouldn't be able to shoot down any conspiracy. You should, remember that I've told people it's like, beforehand they say, well, hey, I knew a guy that swears that Elvis had Bigfoot's baby. Beforehand, I'd be, get out of here. I don't want to talk to you. Now I'll give him a couple minutes. It's like, okay. Because how can I not? It's hypocritical for me to say that. Look, I open up my day with a big bowl of flat Earth. I don't have a right to judge anyone when it comes to conspiracy. I don't care what it is. So yeah, I think it's just going to get, the stories you're talking about are going to get bigger and bigger. And I'm crossing my fingers there'll be some big reveal. So wait for it, because it's got to be for the masses. So whatever big reveal, because you guys are a very intelligent group of people, but the big reveal's got to be for the man on the street. And so it will be ham-fisted, whatever it is, and come over all the phones at the same time, which is also why they waited until that was ready. Yes?
Ernie Johnson from Calgary.
Yeah.
I believe a KNOW know that perspective is missing in Christendom and this latest, most profound topic of flat Earth. My question really has to do with you explaining one of my favorite introductions is to how do you explain the so-called the 1,000 plus mile spinning, the 66,600, and get that number, spinning around the sun, the 500,000 spinning around the universe, galaxy, and the galaxy spinning 500 million. Would you mind just elaborating and sharing on that with people that may not know?
Oh, sure. For anyone that doesn't know, and it is a great thing to show people, or at least tell them about, and that is, if you believe, and I don't have my little globe with me right now, but we'll just pretend this is my hand is the globe. We are spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, right? Spinning around the equator at 1,000 miles an hour. We're also supposedly going around the sun at about 60 times that speed, 60,000 miles an hour. But the one that blows me away is the third thing of speed. So we're spinning, we're going around something, but the entire solar system is flying sideways, supposedly like a giant frisbee. With the sun in the middle like a shotgun pattern. If you remember, you shoot shotguns, all the pellets going together at once. And that just blows me away because you're talking about at 500,000 miles an hour. That's a ridiculous amount of speed. And why it's so significant is that if you send a space probe, if you believe in space, you have these gaps, like they're called null points between the Earth and the Moon, where there's no gravity. It's the equal part between the Earth and the Moon. And then you have these points between like the Earth and Mars, where there's no gravitational pull really at all. So if you're sending a probe, it's like throwing a golf ball out of a car window. The wind aside, you're going to lose momentum on that golf ball. It's gone. It's gone in your rearview mirror. It's not it'll keep up with a car for, a few thousand feet, but that's it. It's gone. So when you send a space probe out in a solar system that's flying sideways, that space probe is 500,000 miles an hour. It is long, long gone. And yet they say, oh yeah, all these probes, we can send them to Jupiter and Pluto and all these other places. So yeah, it's ridiculous. And I love that example. So, yes.
Hi there, I'm Carly Robinson with City News. I have a question here. It seems like you sort of danced around this with your two people have asked it now. Why hasn't anyone sought out to find the edge, to prove? Why hasn't there been this? You say there's these people who have this money to do it, but you've danced around the question twice now. So could you answer it now?
I can. And anyone here that's watched my stuff will already tell you the answer to that. And the big one, and in fact, it is the reason I continued with the clues in the first place. which is the Antarctic Treaty. The unbroken treaty in the history of treaties. No treaty is like this ever in the history of the world. 1959, all the relevant nations had to sign on to it, and if you become an economic power, you have to sign on to it, which says that no corporation gets to go down to Antarctica ever gets to set up there. It doesn't matter how much money. And you're thinking, well, that doesn't mean anything, it's environmental issues. It's like, no, this treaty was made in 1959. Greenpeace wasn't founded until the early 1970s. And not only that, this is the part that bugs me more than anything. Because remember, United States, I'm not going to say what's happening up here, we're based on greed and power and money. Not only do those corporations not get to go down there, they don't even get to talk about it. And we're talking corporations from every country. I mean, Russia needed resources after World War II. England needed resources. China, them, they soak up resources all day long. And yet they're not even allowed to lobby about this. If I was, for example, the head of British Petroleum, and I want to go down there because because the United States went down there and did all their explorations, that there's massive resources. The whole thing is made out of money. Why can't I go to the New York Times or the London Times and run a full-page ad every month saying how great it would be for Mark's British Petroleum to go down there? Those stories should be running all the time. No one talks about it. It is this little out-of-sight, out-of-mind thing. And, in fact, the treaty's not even up for review until 2041. Look it up yourself. Anything below, the 60th latitude? You can't do anything down there. So as far as us trying to make a charge onto the ice, and yeah, I've talked to other people in the flat earth community. It says, oh yeah, let's charge the ice with planes and boats. The boats, you're never getting anywhere. And planes, find me someone that's willing to, because the only other thing is, you've got to have a pilot that's willing to go off of GPS. He's got to be willing to bypass GPS. Remember, GPS was designed by the American military. Ignore everything, ignore compasses, and just fly straight. Yeah, they get too much to lose. Yes.
Hi, I'm Colin Delorme from Broadview, Saskatchewan. I got, a couple of questions, but I'll ask one. Government hides up a lot of secrets or whatever about how the world's circle or their globe shaped. They kind of hypnotized or brainwashed us as kids growing up. There's not really any proven evidence that our world is flat or round. Can you give me your personal theory on that? Are they specialized pictures taken, how they say man?
We're talking about every picture ever.
Yeah, even when man walked on the moon, I don't believe that. I don't believe they actually shuttled for whatever. I'm curious. I'm a new flat earther, and I'm very curious. I got tons of questions, and I do research. So, yeah, I just wanted to know that. Is that just a cover-up or a hoax that the government hides?
Yeah, forgive me. Are we talking about, you want me to, my opinion on just Earth pictures that have been taken over the last 40 years?
Well, basically, since the beginning of time, pretty much, as far back as research goes anyway.
Okay, I'll try to address this one, but I don't want to make it real long, because we got 8 minutes. The Earth picture that really stuck out for me, which was way before I was into flat Earth. Remember, I didn't get into it, and I didn't even start looking at it until 2014. But in 2000, and this really jogged my memory. I mean, it was amazing that I did not see this. Back in 2000, the internet was up, doing its thing. There were a lot of images out there, not a lot of movies, but there were a lot of images. YouTube wasn't a thing yet. I remember I was running a tech support team out of Colorado, and I wanted to put iconic Earth images on all my monitors. And I wanted to get different ones. I thought it'd be kind of cool, right? And I do a search for Earth from space and all the variations, all the Boolean strings of that. And literally, it just kept kicking back the same image, which was the Apollo 17 image, which we all know. It shows, it's iconic. It's the most reproduced image of Earth, in fact, probably image in the history of the world, which shows the bottom part of Africa and all of Antarctica, which is interesting considering it's an American space program, that's the picture you would release. And no matter what I did, I only saw that image. Only later did I realize that it's officially called the blue marble shot. That shot was milked for 43 years. And I can't overstate this. 43 years is a long time in the tech industry, in the space industry. They used that same image just over and over again for 2 generations. And only when we got into this in 2015 did they all of a sudden release a new one. just out of the blue. They said, oh yeah, by the way, we have a satellite, it's 1 million miles away, here's the second blue marble shot. And it's absolutely confirmed. It was released by the White House, it was tweeted by NASA. Scott Kelly wrote the press briefing from space, apparently. Like, what, you got nothing better to do? You're actually writing the White House press briefings? So everything since then, yeah, there's been a bevy of pictures since then, and I challenge anyone to look them up. They're all composites, they're all terrible. The most famous one, and I don't want to drag this out because I want to get a couple more questions in, is the blue marble shot, the fake blue marble shot that they used for the very first iPhone. If you remember, if you're old enough to remember the first iPhone, it was a picture of a globe, and they didn't, like me, they didn't want to use the Apollo 17 shot. It was really, really old. So they got a NASA engineer to create one from scratch in Photoshop. And he admits it, on a radio interview, the whole famous, it's Photoshop, but it has to be, that line. And it's a great testament to what can be done. And in fact, what bugged me was, and I say this because I was at NASA with Patricia recently, was they used that clone tool. He got lazy at the end. He used the clone tool for the clouds in the bottom of that shot. And we actually saw that image. It is actually an official NASA image at the Houston Space Center when we went there. If you go to the giant 747 with the shuttle on top of it, that plane, or that image is actually just sitting right there. So, anyway, yes. Thank you.
I'm Lynn from Sandpoint, Idaho.
Yeah.
And my question is kind of related to the spinning flying globe thing you discussed earlier.
Yeah.
And why hasn't stationary gyroscopes been a slam dunk to the science establishment for an unmoving Earth? Why isn't that just done?
Two ways I can answer that. One, it's not a slam dunk for the science side because they won't address it. Again, remember those 5 questions I rattled off earlier. They won't even address those. It is one of the most frustrating parts of flat Earth, and that is, and I know people in the academic community, and if anyone finds, seriously, call me. If anyone knows somebody with a master's degree in a physical science, master's or higher, let me know, because it's almost impossible to get them to talk about anything, mostly because the education that they got costs so much money, and it's all about being published and the integrity of the community. You don't want to be the scientist that walks into a flat Earth room. Remember, it's not about winning. You've got to win fast, because if you go into a flat Earth argument and you don't beat flat Earth in the first 20 minutes, you've got problems, big problems. And so they don't know how to answer a lot of our questions. But as far as the other thing, let me finish it real quick, which is the reason why it's not slam dunk to the rest of the world, because the gyroscope experiments are, again, difficult to explain to somebody. It's got to be really, really quick. Usually, there's some, this group here, of course, would get it, but the average man on the street, if I can't boil it down for them in generally 90 seconds or less, it's, they're not going to get it. Okay. Yes, got time for, I think, 2 more. Maybe.
Thank you. My name is Eugene from Vancouver Island. Yeah. I would like to create awareness for something that a few of us ever think about, the language barrier. I'd like to point out that one of the reasons the flat Earth and just a general appreciation from truth is not going mainstream is because most of the most wonderful, high-quality resources that are related to flat Earth are available strictly in English. We have to realize that there are millions of people out there for whom English is out of reach. And even though we think of our world as a global community, for me, English is a second language. There are millions of people out there who only have access to videos that have been translated or, videos with captions. Is the community doing anything to team up with, flat earthers from other international locations to bring up high-quality content to those people as well? People in Middle East, China, the republics of the ex-Soviet Union, etc.
Right. You're absolutely right. You know what? And I'm going to end it on that question. Anybody else that's standing in line, just hand the cards to anybody that's still there that's not going to be able to get a question. And anyone that wants cards, if there's any left, just go up and see these 2 guys. But I want to end on that one because it's a great flat Earth unity question, which is, it's something that I had forgotten up until last year, which was, we're just, this is a hybrid of the American-Canadian flat Earth community. It is amazing the amount of people that are in this from nations all over the world. And we are trying to team up, but yeah, like you said, there is a language barrier. If you have any doubt, have some fun with this, seriously. Because I've done interviews for all sorts of stuff. My favorite one was a Russian thing, which I never saw air over there. But type in flat earth into Google and say, just translate it to your favorite language, be it German or Russian or Spanish or French or whatever, and then plug that term back into Google, and you will see an amazing assortment of people. Like, for example, the Indonesian community is massive. The Russian community is really nice. Europe is doing amazing things. Australia and New Zealand doing great stuff. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Do we need to do more to team up? We're trying. I know the Globebusters did a wonderful job, getting Iru from South America. I think that's a great testament. The fact that we did the FE Core thing in Hungary, and that was mostly a European team. And, the UK conference, I know they're English, but the UK conference which happened, D Marble went to a conference in South Korea. We're everywhere. I cannot overstate this. We are literally everywhere. So anyway, thank you very much for everyone that asked questions. Again, if there's cards left, just see these people. You still have cards? If anyone wants one of these cards, you don't have to ask questions. Just go to either Patricia on this side or...
I've got some, Mark. I got just a few. I have in my pocket.
And you guys can have these. But thank you very much for your time. Enjoy the rest of the conference. Some wonderful speakers. And, yeah, that's it. So thank you, guys. Oop, forgot my water.
All right. Mark Sargent, Q&A. Good job, man. One thing I want to address, it's kind of funny, and by the way, we're going to take a quick break here coming up. Matt Long's going to be coming up. I've got 20 seconds to say this before we break for a quick stretch your legs and go out and shop or something. I just want to say this. This is something coming from the media. One of the things that I always did was I had to worry about what I said. So if you're in the media right now, I encourage you, as an individual who was there for over 20-some years, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to research. Don't be afraid to ask questions, but do it quietly. Be wise about it. But you know what you're up against. Don't lie to yourself, and don't accept the lies. Just saying that, and I'm encouraging you to do it for yourself and for others. So on that note, let's take a break. Love you guys. Enjoy. And we'll see you back here in just a little bit with Matt Long. All right, if you're near the doorway, if you can start doing some hand signs to everybody to motion them back in.